Is it possible for one culture to actually be better than another? It's a question that feels almost dangerous to even ask these days, but it's at the absolute heart of a massive debate, and we're going to dive right into it. So let's just put it right out there, plain and simple. Are some cultures better than others? It's a really provocative question, for sure. And how you answer it, well, that often says a lot about where you stand on some of today's biggest, most contentious issues. To really get it, we first have to talk about one key idea. You see, one of the most influential ideas that shapes this whole debate is something many of us were probably taught in school: multiculturalism. It's really the starting point for one entire side of this argument. So, what are we really talking about when we say multiculturalism? Well, the core idea is that all cultures are fundamentally equal. This means no culture's values, or its art, or its political systems can be judged as better or worse than anybody else's. It's basically a belief in total cultural equivalence. And let me tell you, questioning this idea of equivalency can get you into some serious hot water. For instance, when the Nobel Prize-winning novelist Saul Bellow said this, he was pretty much immediately accused of being a racist. It just hit a major nerve because it challenged that core belief of multiculturalism. But the argument here is that maybe we're looking at that quote all wrong. The point from this perspective wasn't about saying some people are incapable of greatness. No, it was an observation about what's been produced historically, that if you look at a very specific field, like the novel, some cultures have just, as a matter of fact, created a larger and more influential body of work. And this, right here, leads to the central challenge this viewpoint poses. If all cultures are truly equal in what they've contributed, how do we explain the undeniable fact that for the last 5 centuries, one culture, Western culture, has so profoundly shaped the entire planet? Now, the main counter-argument you'll hear is that Western dominance comes from one thing: oppression. So this section is all about unpacking that claim and then looking at the rebuttal. And this lays out the two opposing views perfectly. On one side, the charge is that things like colonialism and slavery are the unique, unforgivable sins of the West that fueled its rise. But the rebuttal is, wait a second, historically, these things aren't uniquely Western at all. They're universal. They've popped up in almost every major civilization throughout history, from ancient China and India to Africa and the Americas. So if oppression is just a sad part of the universal human story, what is uniquely Western? Well, according to this argument, it's not the practice of slavery itself, but the creation of the abolitionist movement. Think about it, the first organized effort in all of human history to end slavery. And that idea, that movement, started in the West and then spread to the rest of the world. So if it wasn't just oppression, what explains the West's incredible influence? This argument points to a powerful cocktail of ideas: democracy, capitalism, and the scientific method. And these pillars, it suggests, were built on a really unique foundation: the marriage of classical reason from Athens and Judeo-Christian morality from Jerusalem. Okay, to make this all a bit less abstract, this viewpoint gives us a really potent case study: the British Empire. The largest empire in world history and one of the main vehicles for spreading these Western ideas around the globe. I mean, just wrap your head around the sheer scale of it. The British Empire had colonies on every single inhabited continent. Its reach was truly mind-bogglingly global, which is exactly why its cultural impact was so profound. So how did they pull that off? How is that global reach even possible? Well, the answer is pretty simple: sea power. Britain's Royal Navy was the biggest and the most advanced in the world, and that's what let them project their influence pretty much anywhere they wanted. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. This viewpoint argues that the British actually justified their empire on moral grounds. They truly believed they were bringing stability, a kind of Pax Britannica or British peace, along with fair administration and some basic legal standards, often governing these huge territories with a surprisingly small number of people. And if you want a really stark illustration of that moral conviction, look no further than this quote from General Sir Charles Napier in India. When he was confronted with the practice of sati or widow burning, he didn't sit down and debate cultural relativism. Nope. He drew a hard line and said, look, our custom is to hang murderers. It's a jaw-dropping example of one culture imposing its moral code on another. And that moral conviction, the argument goes, had massive consequences in the 20th century. In 1940, after France fell, it was Britain and its empire standing pretty much alone as the primary force resisting the totalitarianism of Nazi Germany, which was, at that point, allied with the Soviet Union. Okay, so that's all history. What does any of this mean for us today? Well, this line of reasoning is used to draw a very specific and important distinction for a modern immigrant nation like the United States. And this is probably the most crucial distinction in the whole argument. It advocates for a multi-ethnic society. That's where people from all over the world can come and assimilate into a single common culture. It argues against a multicultural society, where different cultures just exist side by side, without any shared set of core values to really bind everyone together. And to show this isn't just some abstract theory, the author points to his own life. He's an immigrant from India. His wife is from Venezuela. And he argues that they haven't tried to build some kind of multicultural home. Instead, they've both assimilated into a common American culture, one built on shared ideals, like the pursuit of happiness. And this brings us to the argument's final, and I think you'll agree, very challenging conclusion, that these values are worth defending, not just because they happen to be ours, but because they are, in and of themselves, good. And that's a pretty provocative idea to leave you with.